Consider this: certain foods possess the ability to endure longer than you, your offspring, and potentially even their children. While many of us fret when milk passes its use-by date within a week, Amish communities have skillfully perfected food preservation methods that render modern refrigeration seem like a temporary trend. These 15 Amish food preservation strategies are not merely quaint relics of the past. They represent survival techniques that contemporary preppers are eagerly seeking to relearn. Honey. Picture unsealing a 3,000-year-old Egyptian burial chamber and discovering something still entirely safe to eat within. That is precisely what archaeologists found with honey, a genuinely eternal food that resists the passage of time. While most of us find it challenging to maintain the freshness of leftovers for just 3 days, this golden substance stays pristine for thousands of years. The Amish have long acknowledged honey's extraordinary durability, establishing it as a fundamental element of their food preservation approach. Their method is remarkably straightforward. They keep raw honey in glass jars equipped with secure lids, subsequently storing these valuable containers in cool, shaded spots within their residences. No elaborate gear or intricate methods are necessary, only knowledge handed down over generations. One vital piece of advice the Amish adhere to rigorously might catch you off guard: never place honey in the refrigerator. Chilling honey actually speeds up the crystallization process, transforming that fluid, golden liquid into a coarse-textured substance. Storing it at room temperature, ideally between 55 and 70 degrees, preserves honey's ideal texture year after year. Naturally, crystallization does not indicate that the honey has gone bad. A bath in warm water can return it to its liquid state. But why invite additional effort? The key to honey's eternal nature rests in its exceptional inherent characteristics. Possessing an extremely low water content and significant acidity, honey establishes conditions where bacteria are unable to thrive. Combine this with the existence of hydrogen peroxide, which enzymes in honey produce naturally, and you have what amounts to nature's most flawless preservative. Anyone who has sampled raw honey from an Amish marketplace understands there is truly no parallel to the commercially manufactured types available in plastic bear containers on grocery store shelves. The distinction lies not solely in the taste, although that deep, intricate sweetness is certainly prominent, but also in the preservation quality. Commercial honey frequently goes through ultrafiltration and pasteurization treatments that prolong shelf life, but eliminate numerous advantageous components. The next occasion you find yourself near an Amish area, visit a roadside stall and acquire a jar of their honey. It could very well be the sole item in your food storage that your great-grandchildren might consume without risk. As one Amish farmer humorously remarked, "We don't worry about expiration dates on honey jars. The jar will break before the honey goes bad." Dried beans. Enter any Amish larder and your eyes will immediately be drawn to the spectrum of dried beans arranged on the shelves. These unassuming legumes constitute the foundation of food security within Amish communities, offering essential protein and nourishment during extended winters and uncertain periods. While the rest of society might fill emergency supplies with freeze-dried rations and energy bars, the Amish have depended on this uncomplicated, efficient preservation technique for generations. Why did the beans seek medical attention? It felt somewhat dehydrated. However, that is precisely the quality that renders them ideal for prolonged storage. Navy beans, characterized by their petite white form and subtle taste, continue to be especially favored among Amish households. These adaptable beans blend seamlessly into soups and stews, delivering substantial nutrition without dominating other flavors. Pinto beans, identifiable by their mottled exterior that turns a consistent pink upon cooking, are incorporated into numerous Amish casseroles. Black beans complete the trio of commonly stored varieties, contributing vivid color and hearty flavor to winter dishes when fresh produce is but a distant recollection. The method for preserving beans showcases the meticulous care typical of Amish food storage practices. Newly gathered beans are subjected to extensive drying, frequently laid out on clean cloths beneath the summer sun until entirely devoid of moisture. Subsequently, the beans are transferred to glass storage jars, never plastic, which might permit minute moisture infiltration over extended periods. Numerous Amish families integrate oxygen absorbers into their bean storage. These small sachets eliminate oxygen from the sealed jar, thereby preventing the oxidation that eventually renders beans incapable of softening. Employing correct drying and storage procedures, beans can readily endure for 30 years or even longer. An entire generation might grow up consuming provisions from the same meticulously preserved harvest. An elderly Amish woman imparts an ingenious preparation hint passed through 5 generations. Introduce 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda into the soaking water for dried beans, and you will effectively reduce the cooking duration by half. This straightforward kitchen science functions by establishing an alkaline condition that disintegrates the bean's cellular structure more rapidly. When utilizing fuel sources such as wood or gas that necessitate careful conservation, such time-efficient methods prove indispensable. The nutritional endurance of dried beans makes them exceptionally valuable within the Amish preservation toolkit. In contrast to many preserved foods that forfeit nutrients over time, correctly stored, dried beans retain their considerable protein levels, approximately 15 grams per cup when cooked, for decades. The only product we'll ever promote on our channel is a book by Claude Davis, a veteran prepper, about 126 superfoods and preservation methods from crisis times like the Great Depression and wartime that are impossible to find elsewhere. We decided to promote his book because we are the last generation able to share these techniques and superfoods to our children or grandchildren. It would be a shame to see this information about highly nutritious foods and preservation methods to survive crisis disappear. You can also find a book about herbal remedies from Nicole on their store. If you're watching this on TV, you can look up our channel Frugal Solutions on your phone or tablet and find the books by clicking the link in our channel description or any other video description. Sauerkraut, the zesty fragrance of fermenting cabbage, heralds the onset of autumn in Amish territory. Substantial stoneware crocks stand like guardians in cool, dim cellar corners, brimming with what many might disregard as mere pickled cabbage. Yet these containers harbor something considerably more precious, a living food that enhances with age and provides significant health advantages. Time-honored fermentation techniques transmitted through generations of Amish families convert commonplace cabbage into exceptional sauerkraut. The enchantment commences with exactitude. Precisely 3 tablespoons of salt blended with 5 pounds of cabbage establishes the ideal conditions for beneficial bacteria to flourish while detrimental microbes are eliminated. This flawless equilibrium originates from centuries of meticulous observation, not contemporary measuring instruments. Cabbage, sliced paper-thin, is firmly compressed into crocks, where salt extracts moisture from the vegetable, forming its own brining solution. A noteworthy aspect of this procedure is that no vinegar is ever introduced. The sour flavor emerges naturally as lactobacillus bacteria transform sugars in the cabbage into lactic acid, yielding the characteristic tang associated with properly crafted sauerkraut. Throughout fermentation, which generally spans 3 to 6 weeks based on ambient temperature, these advantageous bacteria proliferate substantially. A single portion of Amish sauerkraut frequently possesses a greater diversity of probiotics than costly supplements available in health food stores. These microorganisms foster healthy digestion and bolster the immune system, a fact Amish families have instinctively grasped long before scientific research validated these benefits. Once fermentation is finished, the Amish relocate their sauerkraut into sterilized glass jars for extended storage in a cool basement. Unlike commercially made versions, which are subjected to pasteurization that eradicates beneficial bacteria, Amish sauerkraut stays vibrant with active cultures. These jars can be safely kept preserved for over 2 years, with numerous Amish households attesting that the taste actually gets better during the second year of storage. The cultural significance of sauerkraut in Amish communities goes beyond simple nourishment. Its preparation frequently evolves into a communal activity where neighbors convene to process substantial quantities together. Children acquire the skill by observing their elders, assimilating both the practical expertise and the principles of cooperation and resourcefulness that characterize the Amish lifestyle. As contemporary science aligns with traditional knowledge, researchers have substantiated what the Amish have understood through experience. Fermented foods cultivate an internal setting where good health can thrive. The straightforward blend of cabbage, salt, and thyme yields something far exceeding the sum of its components. Fermented root vegetables, root cellars across Amish regions, safeguard vibrant treasures that modern grocery stores cannot rival. Carrots radiating orange, beets in profound ruby hues, and turnips in creamy white occupy glass jars with vivid colors suggesting concentrated nourishment. These vegetables experience a transformation that not only preserves their caloric content, but also amplifies their health benefits via the age-old practice of lactofermentation. The saline brine forming the basis of this preservation method adheres to a precise recipe. 2 tablespoons of salt, dissolved per quart of water, establishes the ideal equilibrium. Insufficient salt permits detrimental bacteria to proliferate. Excessive salt inhibits the advantageous fermentation from commencing. This elementary ratio, retained in the memories of Amish women rather than documented in cookbooks, yields consistent outcomes year after year. In contrast to modern food preservation methods that often diminish nutritional value, fermentation actually boosts the health advantages of these vegetables. The process decomposes cell walls, rendering minerals more accessible for bodily absorption. Vitamin levels, notably B vitamins, rise considerably. One compelling finding: fermented beets possess nearly double the usable iron compared to their fresh counterparts. Temperature is critically important for successful fermentation. Amish families keep their fermenting vegetables in locations maintaining temperatures between 32 and 50 degree Celsius. Root cellars excavated into hillsides naturally provide this optimal range without relying on electricity. The subtle seasonal variations within these storage spaces actually enhance the intricate flavor development that mass-produced fermented foods cannot replicate. The Amish inclination towards lactofermentation aligns with their broader principle of self-reliance. By utilizing natural processes instead of depending on modern technology, they preserve independence from the external world while generating food that sustains their families throughout the year. A quart jar of fermented carrots signifies not just sustenance, but also a declaration about their connection to the land and their community. When effervescence ceases in the fermentation container, typically after 1 to 3 weeks, the vegetables are transferred to cold storage. Unlike canning, which demands precise timing, fermentation is guided by visual indicators that children learn to identify from a young age. This intuitive method of food preservation guarantees that valuable knowledge is passed from one generation to the next without formal schooling. Maple syrup, sweet amber fluid cascades from trees to tables throughout Amish communities each spring, encapsulating sunlight in a bottle that resists spoilage. Genuine maple syrup ranks among nature's most extraordinary foods, not merely delightful, but essentially everlasting when stored correctly. This natural sweetener occupies a cherished position in Amish kitchens, where families value both its taste and its remarkable shelf stability. The preservation of this sylvan treasure commences with meticulous handling during its creation. Amish families heat their syrup to precisely 180 degrees Celsius before bottling it in meticulously sterilized containers. This exact temperature eradicates any potential spoilage agents without compromising the delicate flavor elements that render pure maple syrup so unique. The heated syrup is then immediately transferred into hot containers, establishing a vacuum seal as it cools. Were you aware that it requires 40 gallons of maple sap to yield just 1 gallon of syrup? This significant concentration clarifies why authentic maple syrup endures indefinitely. The sugar concentration is so elevated that bacteria simply cannot flourish within it. The Amish honor this natural gift by employing storage techniques that conserve every single drop of this valuable liquid, which represents weeks of effort collecting sap from sugar maple trees. Properly sealed maple syrup is kept in cool, shaded areas within Amish homes. Unlike honey, which should never be refrigerated, maple syrup actually profits from refrigeration once opened. This straightforward storage distinction is pivotal in maintaining the quality of these natural sweeteners. Unopened bottles stay perfectly viable for decades when stored in a cool pantry, shielded from direct light. The yearly maple syrup season unites communities as Amish families assist one another in tapping trees and managing evaporators. The sweet vapor ascending from sugar shacks signifies the conclusion of winter and the advent of spring, rendering syrup-making as much a celebratory occasion as a vital food preservation undertaking. Even if maple syrup eventually forms minor quantities of harmless surface mold after opening, Amish thriftiness guarantees that nothing is squandered. The syrup is simply reheated to a boil, skimmed, and utilized for baking instead of direct consumption. This pragmatic approach to food management extends the functional lifespan of even slightly compromised syrup indefinitely. Eggs. Breakfast tables throughout America would appear vastly different without eggs, yet modern refrigeration has caused us to overlook a simple reality well remembered by Amish communities. Eggs possess a much longer shelf life than most individuals assume. Through ingenious preservation strategies, Amish families prolong the usability of eggs from mere weeks to numerous months, all without electricity or contemporary amenities. The unassuming egg arrives in its own, almost flawless container, featuring a protective bloom coating that naturally maintains freshness. Amish families refrain from washing eggs until immediately prior to use, thereby preserving this inherent shield against bacteria. They gather eggs on a daily basis and handle them minimally, keeping the protective layer undamaged. This elementary practice alone considerably extends freshness compared to commercially processed eggs, which are washed promptly, stripping away their natural defense. Have you ever pondered why certain pickled eggs adopt a pink hue? They aren't blushing, they've simply been pickled alongside beets. This vivid coloration isn't merely aesthetic, it also indicates that the preservation method is functioning correctly. One of the most widespread Amish egg preservation techniques converts ordinary eggs into zesty delights that endure for months under refrigeration. The ideal pickling mixture blends 2 cups of vinegar, 1 cup of water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt. This acidic solution establishes an environment where harmful bacteria cannot thrive, effectively preserving the egg indefinitely. The science underpinning pickled eggs is intriguing. The vinegar's acidity permeates the eggshell's thousands of minute pores, essentially curing the egg throughout. This procedure alters both texture and taste, yielding a uniquely preserved food item that bears little similarity to its fresh state, but presents its own culinary gratifications. For Amish families raising chickens, seasonal variations in egg-laying pose practical difficulties. Hens naturally produce more eggs during spring and summer due to increased daylight hours. Traditional preservation methods enable families to savor eggs year-round despite these natural rhythms. Instead of inducing unnatural production via artificial illumination, they simply preserve the surplus when it naturally arises. Dehydrated herbs. Clusters of aromatic herbs dangle from ceiling supports in Amish kitchens, gradually relinquishing their moisture to the surrounding air. This ancient preservation technique converts fresh herbs into concentrated flavor enhancers that endure through the extended winter season. Unlike contemporary electric dehydrators, employing precise temperature regulation, Amish herb drying depends on careful positioning and patience. The drying temperature consistently remains below 95 degrees Celsius, safeguarding the fragile oils that impart herbs with their characteristic tastes and medicinal qualities. Attaining this ideal temperature without electronic thermostats necessitates knowledge passed down through generations. Herbs are suspended in locations with adequate air movement but shielded from direct sunlight, which would diminish their color and effectiveness. Bundles tied with basic cotton string establish the perfect drying conditions. The Amish meticulously harvest herbs in the morning, after the dew has evaporated, but before the midday sun initiates oil evaporation. This timing optimizes the flavor and therapeutic compounds within each leaf and stem. Plants harvested at their peak potency preserve more of their advantageous characteristics throughout the drying process. Ever attempted to crush a dried herb only to end up with mere powder? That scenario won't occur with correctly dried Amish herbs. They retain just enough moisture to emit aromatic oils upon crushing without disintegrating into dust. A straightforward check indicates proper drying. Crush a leaf between your fingers. It ought to crumble readily while emitting a potent fragrance. If the herb merely bends instead of breaking, it requires further drying time. I recall hearing about an Amish grandfather capable of identifying every herb in his storage jars blindfolded solely by scent. Apparently, he once mistakenly used dried mint instead of basil in his tomato sauce. The family still recounts tales of his toothpaste spaghetti decades later. Dark glass jars serve as the ideal repository for dried herbs. The Amish incorporate small oxygen absorber packets into these containers, significantly extending their shelf life. Stored in cool, shaded areas, properly dried herbs retain their potency for 1 to 3 years. Leafy herbs, such as basil and cilantro, typically last about a year, whereas robust rosemary and thyme stay potent for up to 3 years. Herb drying illustrates the Amish method of food preservation, collaborating with nature's rhythms rather than opposing them. By comprehending each plant's characteristics and harvesting at optimal moments, they establish a pantry that sustains them throughout the year without reliance on electricity or chemical preservatives. These dried herbs link meals across the year back to the abundance of the summer garden. Pickled vegetables. While cucumber pickles might hold sway on supermarket shelves, venturing into an Amish pantry reveals a spectrum of pickled vegetables that elevates common produce into exceptional preserved edibles. Carrots retain their vibrant orange luster. Green beans offer a tangy crispness. Cauliflower preserves its many Amish families. The Amish have innovated creative combinations rarely explored by commercial manufacturers. Sweet and sour pickled carrots infused with dill, spicy pickled cauliflower featuring mustard seeds, or green beans enhanced with garlic and pepper flakes yield unique tastes far exceeding standard dill or sweet pickles. These variations introduce welcome vibrancy to winter meals when fresh produce is unavailable. Pickling brine employs basic components. Vinegar supplies the acidity necessary to prevent spoilage. Salt amplifies flavors while extracting moisture from vegetables, and sugar counteracts tartness in certain formulations. The Amish favor apple cider vinegar produced from their own orchards, establishing a sustainable loop where one preserved item, apple cider vinegar, aids in creating another, pickled vegetables. Cool, dark storage locations preserve pickle quality for the maximum duration. Unlike fermented foods, which continue evolving in flavor during storage, pickled vegetables attain their optimal taste after approximately 1 month and sustain that quality for many subsequent months. When executed and stored properly, these colorful jars deliver summer's abundance to the table long after the harvest period has passed. Apple butter, the opulent scent of apples and cinnamon, permeates Amish communities each autumn as substantial copper kettles simmer over open flames. Within these kettles, a metamorphosis occurs, converting ordinary apples into a preserve so stable it endures for years without needing refrigeration. Apple butter, despite its designation, incorporates no dairy whatsoever, merely apples reduced to a dense, spreadable consistency that encapsulates the spirit of autumn within a jar. The creation of apple butter often becomes a communal undertaking in many Amish settlements. Neighbors congregate around a central fire, where a copper kettle accommodates up to 25 gallons of slowly simmering apple pulp. Long-handled wooden paddles continuously stir the mixture to avert scorching. This incessant stirring yields apple butter's characteristic smooth texture while facilitating the evaporation of surplus moisture. The procedure frequently spans 6 to 8 hours, with families rotating turns wielding the stirring paddle. Elevated sugar content and inherent acidity account for apple butter's superior longevity compared to standard jam. As apples cook down, their natural sugars become concentrated, fostering an environment where bacteria find it difficult to proliferate. This concentration imparts apple butter with its deep brown hue and caramelized flavor nuances, which regular applesauce lacks. The extended cooking duration also diminishes water content, further enhancing shelf stability. Why does apple butter endure for such a long time? I heard it's because bacteria sample it once and declare, "No thank you, I'll return when you offer something less delicious." The canning procedure demands meticulous attention to specifics. Each sterilized jar is filled with hot apple butter, leaving precisely 1/4 inch of headspace at the top. This exact measure permits adequate expansion during processing without jeopardizing the seal. A water bath treatment for precisely 10 minutes establishes a vacuum seal that safeguards the contents for years ahead. Many Amish families insert a cinnamon stick into each jar prior to sealing, enabling subtle spice undertones to mature during storage. Unlike numerous preserved foods that decline in quality over time, apple butter's flavor frequently enhances during the initial months post-canning as these spices infuse the preserve. The profound flavors of well-crafted apple butter elevate ordinary toast into something remarkable, bringing summer's radiance to dim winter mornings. The practical ingenuity behind apple butter exemplifies Amish resourcefulness, fashioning something enduring from ingredients that would otherwise perish. Autumn's apple surplus transforms into winter's breakfast mainstay through a method that eliminates waste and fosters community cohesion. Tomatoes, ruby red jars adorn cellar shelves throughout Amish territory, each holding summer's brilliance captured at its zenith. Preserved tomatoes constitute the cornerstone of winter cuisine, supplying vital vitamins and vibrant taste when fresh produce is but a distant recollection. Unlike many vegetables necessitating pressure canning, tomatoes can be safely processed via a water bath owing to their inherent acidity, although Amish canners are aware of a vital safety measure frequently omitted in modern recipes. The cultivars selected for canning reflect generations of practical insight. Roma and San Marzano tomatoes feature most prominently in Amish canning jars because these substantial varieties possess less water and more pulp than slicing tomatoes. This innate density yields a richer end product without necessitating extra cooking duration. Some families cultivate these varieties solely for preservation, selecting for attributes like thick walls and minimal seeds over successive generations. Incorporating precisely 1 tablespoon of lemon juice into each pint jar guarantees safety during water bath canning. This minor yet crucial step elevates acidity to levels that inhibit botulism development, acknowledging the fact that contemporary tomato varieties often contain less natural acid than heirloom types. Safety considerations are never subordinated to tradition in Amish canning procedures. Correct sealing methods significantly extend shelf life. Following processing, Amish families detach the rings from their canning jars once the lids have properly sealed. This seemingly counterintuitive action prevents false seals, where food residue trapped between the ring and jar might create a deceptive appearance of safety while permitting spoilage beneath. These minute details, passed down through generations, avert food wastage and safeguard family well-being. A tomato and a bell pepper found themselves side by side in an Amish canning pantry. The bell pepper remarked, "Wow, it's certainly packed in here." The tomato responded, "Indeed, I'm feeling somewhat jarred by this entire situation." Preserved tomatoes fulfill roles far exceeding basic soups and sauces in Amish kitchens. Winter breakfasts might showcase eggs poached in seasoned canned tomatoes. Special events may call for tomato jam spiced with cinnamon and cloves, an unexpected delicacy that complements cheese beautifully. Certain families even devise tomato-based concoctions that introduce festivity to winter gatherings when fresh components are limited. Through straightforward yet exact methods, Amish families convert summer's most abundant crop into adaptable ingredients that sustain them throughout the year. The jars stack tidily on pantry shelves, each symbolizing hours of garden cultivation, harvesting, and processing that interlink the seasons in a perpetual cycle of abundance. Pressure canned meats, mason jars brimming with tender morsels of beef, chicken, and venison might astonish visitors exploring Amish pantries. These shelf-stable meats necessitate no refrigeration, yet stay safe and palatable for 3 years or more. The key resides in precise pressure canning techniques honed over generations of practice. When contemporary freezers cease functioning during power interruptions, these jars of impeccably preserved protein continue to nourish families without disruption. The procedure commences with meticulous meat preparation. Amish cooks slice beef, chicken, or venison into consistent chunks designed to heat uniformly during processing. Each clean jar is filled with meat pieces packed loosely, ensuring an inch of headspace remains at the top. A vital addition of exactly 1 teaspoon of salt per quart jar enhances taste while aiding preservation. No liquid is introduced. The meat generates its own broth during the processing phase. Pressure canning demands specialized apparatus capable of reaching temperatures significantly exceeding boiling water. While water boils at 212 degrees, a pressure canner attains 240 degrees, the temperature required to eliminate hazardous botulism spores that water bath canning cannot eradicate. This scientific comprehension remains fundamental to Amish food safety protocols. Jars are processed at precisely 10 pounds of pressure for exactly 90 minutes, yielding a product that stays safe for years. They say chicken is the most apprehensive meat to can, being perpetually under pressure. Yet, with appropriate techniques, even the most jittery poultry transforms into convenient, ready-to-consume meals. The quality of home-canned meat excels beyond commercial counterparts in both texture and flavor. Lacking chemical preservatives or excessive salt, the natural meat tastes predominate. Opening a jar releases the fragrance of a slow-cooked roast. Although the actual cooking duration was comparatively short, the pressure canning process essentially pre-cooks the meat while locking in its juices, producing tender pieces that require only minimal preparation to become part of a meal. In Amish households, these jars offer instant meal foundations throughout the year. A jar of chicken swiftly becomes chicken and dumplings. Canned beef readily converts into stroganoff or stew. Venison makes hearty sandwiches without prolonged cooking. This convenience served families long before the advent of modern shortcut ingredients, demonstrating that kitchen efficiency doesn't necessitate contemporary technology, merely careful planning and proven preservation methods. Bone broth. Nothing showcases Amish thriftiness more effectively than their handling of bones. What many would readily discard transforms into liquid gold through careful processing that extracts every possible nutrient from livestock and game animals. Rich, gelatinous bone broth occupies innumerable jars in Amish pantries, supplying both taste and nourishment throughout the year. This traditional sustenance has gained popularity in recent times, yet Amish families have esteemed it for centuries as both a remedy and a cooking staple. Crafting authentic bone broth demands patience. Bones are simmered for 12 to 24 hours, releasing minerals, collagen. A cow, a chicken, and a pig were debating whose bones yielded the finest broth. The cow asserted, "Mine possess the most minerals." The chicken declared, "Mine offer the best flavor." The pig simply grinned and stated, "Admit it, I'm just more stock market friendly." Applications for bone broth reach far beyond simple soup bases in Amish kitchens. rice prepared in broth instead of water gains additional nutrients and taste. Gravies formulated with homemade broth require less seasoning owing to the concentrated flavor. Even plain broth, consumed from a mug, functions as traditional medicine for ailments ranging from digestive issues to joint discomfort, a practice increasingly corroborated by modern research. Waste prevention serves as a primary motivation for much of Amish bone broth creation. Animals raised or hunted for sustenance merit thorough utilization out of both reverence and practicality. This nose-to-tail philosophy regarding food production establishes a sustainable cycle where every component serves a function and nothing is squandered. Lard. Prior to vegetable oils becoming ubiquitous on kitchen shelves, rendered animal fat functioned as the principal cooking agent in homes across America. This custom persists in Amish communities, where lard continues to be a pantry mainstay, preserved for extended utilization. Pure lard, derived from pasture-raised pigs, furnishes a cooking fat possessing a high smoke point and opulent flavor unmatched by modern substitutes. When rendered and stored correctly, this practical fat stays stable for 5 years or longer. Rendering converts raw pork fat into shelf-stable lard via a meticulous procedure perfected by Amish families. Fresh fat is diced into small portions and cooked over minimal heat for roughly 3 hours. This gentle method prevents scorching while permitting impurities to segregate from the pure fat. As the fat liquefies, it is strained through tightly woven cheesecloth, yielding a pristine white substance devoid of particles that could induce rancidity during storage. The filling procedure necessitates careful attention. Hot jars are filled with hot lard, leaving a uniform 1-inch headspace at the container's top. This exact measure allows for adequate expansion during processing without affecting the seal. The filled jars are then transferred to a pressure canner, processing at 10 pounds of pressure for 90 minutes, the identical processing duration needed for meat products. This comprehensive canning guarantees that no bacteria remain to induce spoilage. You recognize you're in an Amish kitchen when the cook requests, "Pass the lard," and 3 distinct family members simultaneously reach for it. This unpretentious ingredient experiences more daily application than premium olive oils ever would. Properly preserved lard presents clear benefits over commercial shortening. Its flavor elevates both sweet and savory preparations, yielding pastry crusts with unparalleled flakiness. Unlike hydrogenated vegetable shortenings, traditional lard is devoid of trans fats. It actually offers a healthier fat composition than many contemporary alternatives, comprising nearly 50% monounsaturated fat, the same heart-beneficial fat present in olive oil. The preservation of lard signifies more than mere culinary inclination within Amish culture. It represents a dedication to utilizing every portion of an animal with respect. Instead of acquiring processed cooking fats, families produce their own from animals they have personally raised, thus retaining control over both quality and provenance. This self-reliant ethos permeates every facet of food production and preservation, linking daily sustenance to profoundly held principles of stewardship and diligence. Butter. The golden bricks of butter, commonly found in modern refrigerators, bear minimal resemblance to the preserved butter crafted by Amish families for generations, employing an astonishing preservation method unfamiliar to most contemporary cooks. Butter can be safely stored without refrigeration for years, not just days. This technique converts a highly perishable dairy item into a shelf-stable pantry, essential that preserves its taste and utility long after its creation. The preservation procedure commences with fresh butter, frequently derived from cream skimmed from the family's own dairy cows. The butter is melted entirely in a substantial pot, permitting water to segregate from the butter fat. This water, which typically restricts butter's shelf life by offering a medium for bacterial proliferation, ascends to the surface and evaporates during gentle simmering. The clarified butter is subsequently poured into hot, sterilized jars, ensuring appropriate headspace for effective sealing. Following filling, the jars undergo processing in a boiling water bath for 60 minutes, considerably longer than many modern canners might anticipate. This prolonged processing duration guarantees thorough sterilization and establishes a vacuum seal that obstructs oxygen from accessing the butter. Properly processed jars are then relocated to cool, dark storage locations where temperatures stay below 75 degrees. Under these circumstances, the preserved butter remains suitable for cooking and baking for up to 3 years. I attempted to inform my urban friend about preserved butter, and she retorted, "That cannot be accurate. Butter spoils in my refrigerator within a month." I explained to her, "That's because your butter hasn't discovered the Amish secret of remaining composed under pressure." Straightforward sensory evaluations assist Amish families in ascertaining whether preserved butter remains usable. Its appearance should stay clear, devoid of cloudiness, and its aroma ought to be clean, without any trace of rancidity. If both assessments are satisfactory, the butter continues to be safe for consumption, even years post-preservation. This self-sufficient approach to food safety depends on meticulous observation rather than printed expiration labels. The flavor of preserved butter diverges slightly from fresh. It acquires a more concentrated taste, akin to ghee utilized in Indian cuisine. This intensified flavor actually enhances numerous baked items, imparting a richness to breads and cookies that surpasses what fresh butter offers. For everyday cooking, its elevated smoke point renders it perfect for sautéing and frying, outperforming fresh butter, which tends to burn at lower temperatures. Cheese. It's difficult to conceive of cheese enduring for years without refrigeration. Enter an Amish pantry, however, and you'll find jars of preserved cheese that maintain shelf stability for as long as 2 years. This unforeseen preservation technique converts perishable dairy into convenient pantry staples through a method that might astonish even seasoned home canners. While contemporary consumers depend on refrigeration to keep cheese edible for mere weeks, Amish families have refined methods that extend that duration substantially. The preservation starts with hard cheeses such as cheddar, Colby, and Swiss, varieties possessing lower moisture content, which process more consistently. The cheese is grated or cubed to promote uniform heating throughout the jar. Unlike other canning procedures that simply heat food to eradicate bacteria, cheese preservation entails an intriguing chemical transformation, altering both texture and stability. Gentle heat melts the cheese, while a crucial addition of baking soda, precisely 1 teaspoons per pound of cheese, prevents fat separation during the processing. This exact measurement is the deciding factor between successful preservation and an oily debacle. The melted cheese mixture is poured into hot, sterilized jars, leaving adequate headspace before processing commences. Did you hear about the cheese that enrolled in an Amish preservation workshop? It aimed to learn maturation techniques without developing mold. It transpired that all it required was a brief period in a hot water bath. The water bath processing duration depends on jar size, with pints necessitating 40 minutes at a vigorous rolling boil. Throughout this interval, the cheese undergoes a complete metamorphosis, becoming a product comparable to processed cheese but lacking commercial additives or preservatives. The sealed jars cool gradually to room temperature before being transferred to storage shelves in cool, shaded areas within Amish residences. Preserved cheese fulfills various functions in Amish kitchens. The shelf-stable jars supply readily available protein for swift meals when refrigeration is unavailable. Its consistent melting properties make it ideal for macaroni and cheese or casserole toppings. During summer months, when milk yield is abundant but maintaining cheese coolness poses difficulties, this preservation method curtails waste while generating convenient winter meal components. Cheese preservation embodies the Amish dedication to self-reliance amidst seasonal fluctuations. By overseeing the entire sequence from milk production to preservation, families sustain independence from commercial food networks while guaranteeing nutritional availability year-round. This practical approach transforms potential spoilage into enduring sustenance through uncomplicated techniques refined across generations. These 15 Amish food preservation methods unveil enduring wisdom that converts commonplace ingredients into exceptional pantry essentials. Their techniques meld precision, patience, and practicality, forging a self-sufficient food system that guarantees year-round nutrition while upholding their principles of stewardship, community, and resourcefulness.